Okay, so earlier I think it did something that's going to start to annoy me over time. Is it overheats because it's like sitting in the sun on the dash, like the way it is. So it's done that before. Even though it's like 30 degrees outside sometimes, it's just the sun is hitting it so much that, like, so how am I supposed to do a long stream? I guess I could just not show the camera or show it from further back. Like that's really an odd thing to have to worry about, especially that I've been streaming mostly in winter and stuff. That I'm not too happy about it, but yeah, let's discuss more absolutist philosophy here. And so one of the things I'll discuss is the simple fact that here's a concept that comes to mind. Like, your daily life and your norms are dictated by what? Right? What is it that's the cognitive dissonance that you're constantly fighting against? And you can't successfully fight against it. Again, people are very tolerant, so this is often used against them. People can live on one meal a day and pick berries in the woods and sleep on the ground. People can do that. Right? People will point to history like, oh, people have done that in history, or, oh, people are starving in third world countries all around the world. That's a cute idea. Of course, you're not leveraging amalgam theory here. You're using it to reinforce some machination process, overextended, unqualified empirical state. But the point being that, yes, you're right that people require very little and can tolerate virtually anything. But that's the point. In other words, then in that premise, you would be free then. Oh, so we don't need government, we don't need corporations, we don't need anything, and we can be free. So where is that option? Right? Where is that minimalist option? So, don't complain about society or rules or contrivance or whatever because, you have all these luxuries and benefits. The way the absolutists would take that would be, wait a second, if those benefits are the reason why you're leveraging that, why somebody is not free, then, you know what I mean? Like, if those rules are why you're leveraging that they're not free, then okay, I'll give those things up and now I can be free. So that's the point of it. Like, sure, you can be a minimalist or you can deal with anything, but why should you deal with it in service of the specific contrivance state around you? That'd be like saying, oh, just don't complain, you're entitled, but you're in World War II Germany. Oh, but your parents had to deal with World War I Germany, and that might have been, seemingly worse. Like, so don't complain. Meanwhile, by not complaining, you're doing it in service to that, and you're kind of reinforcing that negative state. So you're doing it, again, it's one thing if you can tolerate stuff, you can tolerate anything, but don't do it in service of a specific contrivance state. Because, okay, you could say, well, you're living in China right now, so, just deal with it. It could be worse. It could be North Korea. Or, you could, yes, you can deal with it, but there's this weird gratification. The question is, should you deal with it? Should you have to deal with it? And is the reason why you're dealing with it, just based in human error and human creation, or is it something actually that serves a purpose and is kind of worth it, right? Because that's what people will do, especially older generations. They'll feel gratified, like, oh, look, we had to suffer through this and this and this. Yes, maybe you did, and maybe that's unfortunate. Now they want you to suffer through something too, just to kind of prove a point. But maybe the reason why they suffered through it wasn't valid. Maybe, it's because a dictator was trying to take advantage of them, so they suffered through that. Good for them. But that doesn't mean that you want to reinforce that basis. So be careful that, your tolerance and your ability and your whatever, even like some pseudo minimalist fallacy that people use, just make sure it's not in favor of by doing that you're reinforcing a corporate monopoly over nature and a unqualified empirical basis. That's the point. Like, you could live out in the woods and pick berries, somebody would say, like, facetiously, but the absolutists would take it literally. Yes, I could do that, and if I did that, I'll be damned if society would tell me what to do then, and still restrict me, and they still will, and it's corporate land, it's this and that, right? You'll be trespassed or something from nature itself. So that's the rabid overextension of a contrivance state. So what it means is that basically that is a very telling thing that I want you to understand. And what I want you to understand is the fact that basically, right, that's the trade-off. So you're sacrificing a lot to be a part of a society, all the inherent freedoms, but it somehow seems like a benefit, or it's framed as a net positive, like somehow, like, oh, look at these benefits, look at these luxuries, but wait a second, if you took away all the restriction, you could do basically whatever you wanted in nature, and you might say, well, it'll be a machination process argument, but, technology, but again, technology is not owned by one country, like, oh, well, China would use its technology to justify its rule, just like every other country would do, so it doesn't justify that specific power structure or country. Right, technology is just a net something that exists. You can use that to benefit the idea of society overall, just to say, okay, this is a result of society existing and people, working together, kind of. But that's completely separate from the specific contrivance states that you're a part of, because by that logic, you would just reinforce all of them then, right? Governments always have a monopoly over technology to some extent, so that's going to seem to validate them. So yeah, that fallacy is very strong, right? So you could frame it that way, like a conversation between characters, right? A parent ridiculing somebody, like, oh, what do you want to go live out in the woods? But they would take it seriously. Actually, why not? But they won't let you, right? They wouldn't let you, regardless whatever negatives you think there are, a lot of which arguably are by human hands too. It's like, oh, I have a scene like this I wrote. I can't remember exactly which story it was in, but I think I remember, but like a guy is living as a minimalist, right? And he is drinking water from a stream, and then he realizes that water is polluted. It's like, oh, you're finally outside of the framework and control of society, but even its influence is still felt there. Not only would they still try to stop you from doing that and trespass you and whatever, right? But they would even the trickle-down effect of them monopolizing everything, that water that normally would not be polluted because it would just exist, right? That's human pollution, now is polluted. So like, people create the problem and then they take credit, like, oh, now this is why you need us, this is why you need to buy bottled water, because we polluted the rest of it, and because we take a monopoly over it. Like, it might seem to make sense reactively, but there's no inherent basis for it. Like, there's no actual reason why, right? So the ultimate concession is that people are basically just lazy and stupid. You are lazy and you are stupid. That must be the premise. Otherwise, there'd be no reason for any of that. Like, right? It's overextension, mass collective, horny, hedonistic animals that just keep pumping out more kids, right? And that overextended basis is why you're inhibited. So like, the more people there are, the more inhibited you'll be, because it's an unqualified basis. You as an individual might be completely neutral, right? You might not do anything wrong ever. You might not have any, right? But it doesn't matter. You are. This is the stigma effect kind of in reverse, where I acknowledge like all the stigma effect, all the faults of human history and authority, and like lack of human credibility. But the way this is used, this is kind of used in society in a different way, subliminally. Like, human beings are bad and flawed and whatever. And so what does that mean? It means that even if you're not even if you're not flawed, right? Even if it doesn't apply to you, it'll still be used to control you. Like, you're inhibited not on something that you've done, right? You're like guilty until proven innocent. You're restricted, and you have to adhere to things even if they don't apply to you. You've done nothing wrong, but you still have to adhere to something, right? You have to jump through a lot of hoops. Like, you need all this kind of whatever it is. Like, you need IDs, and you need permission, and you need, the door is locked, you need a key, you need to ask for it, you, like, whatever this. I'm just thinking of different contexts. Like, there's cameras everywhere. Like, so you're guilty until proven innocent within that. So it shows you people are not at peace with their own nature or anything, but yet that's used against you, but it's not used against power structures. The government is perfect and can do nothing wrong, and corporations are perfect and could do nothing wrong. But RBO protocol versus initial, those people out of sight, out of mind. If you were in front of them and saw everything they did every day, you would be skeptical and cynical too. But they're out of sight, out of mind, so you give them the benefit of the doubt. But the people in front of you, ordinary, everyday people, you'd be skeptical of them. So this is how they control you. Like, look, random people walking about in society, you'd be skeptical of them and their intention and project the negative view of humanity towards them. But you wouldn't do that to structure. You wouldn't do that to, like, the power structure, stuff like that. The problem with that too is especially the fact that right, that's what I talk about, the stigma effect. Those same people, if you saw them in person, you'd be skeptical. But because they're out of sight, out of mind, or framed in media and this and that, that's the difference. That's the whole irony of it. Is like the difference between the anointed who rule you and ordinary people has a lot more to do with the framing of, by the media or whatever the case may be. It has more to do with that than it does to do with the reality, right? If you saw everything. So that's like the awareness of the larger process, right? This is one of the great observational basis points that I've discussed, right? Everyone knows what people look like naked. Maybe not exactly, but we all know that what the human body looks like, but we still cover it up and we still hide from it because there's a monopoly over it or control. We're trying to, people try to use it to their benefit and exploit it, and almost like a pseudo prostitution, possessive kind of thing, right? And they're controlled by it too. So the point is that they're not at peace with it. They're not in control of that tendency. They're controlled by it, and they're kind of obsessed over it. It's like the initial basis would be like they're wearing clothes, so okay, they're wearing clothes. The larger process or objective awareness would be, well, it doesn't matter whether they're wearing clothes or not, right? Because you know what the human body looks like, and so it doesn't matter. You're aware of that process. So whether they're wearing clothes or not, you're aware of all the states that they could be in. So, like, it doesn't, it doesn't matter, right? That was why you would be at peace with it. So if they were naked, it wouldn't matter. If they're wearing clothes, it wouldn't matter, because you're at peace with that. You're aware. You're not some mindless drone who's just like reduced to whatever externality is presented in front of you. You can think for yourself and see for yourself and decide for yourself, right? You're aware of the nature of the process, right? And so what that means basically is that if you're aware of the nature of the process, it would mean that or you're not relying on externality. So the strength of that is to say, just because of what's in front of you, right, your awareness isn't limited to that. You're like, oh, well, they're only doing that. It's kind of hard to explain in this manner. You'd have to give an example, but like, oh, somebody's being super nice, but they're only being that way because they want something, or, they went to sales school for years to be able to do that. Like, so it's the same thing that's happening, but you're aware of the nature of it more. And it's not even to say that diminishes it or makes it negative, but it would make it negative if you were aware of it. So again, the clothing example is pretty good, that yes, we know what people look like without clothing, so it doesn't matter, right? But it shows you people can't control themselves or whatever adverse reaction. But that really shows you the difference between the initial mind and a self-aware person. Is like, if society was a nudist colony and people walked around naked, it wouldn't be a big deal. Unless you make it one, right, it'd be fine. So that shows you that right, it shows you something, because you're not, that's the best way I can describe it, really. Being aware of the larger process at work, like being aware of all things to do with it, instead of just the one thing that's presented to you, right? So you would be aware, like behind closed doors, the same people who rule you, presidents, governor, senator, corporate leaders and stuff, behind closed doors, they might be total dicks. They might be doing the Epstein type island. Again, this is what people specify. Oh, the Epstein, this and that. Probably stuff like that's happening right now. People, when people are that powerful, they're going to do stuff like that all the time. So, well, maybe not that specifically, but you know what I mean. Like they're conspiring things together or whatever. So. Just to kind of test it, but the fact that it overheated is what really put a damper in it. Right, I wasn't able to Panera Bread in a rest stop, in a service station. Really, that doesn't seem to make, even Chick-fil-A, like that doesn't seem like that kind of food for that. It's too expensive. It's too, I don't know. Yeah, let's use that to segue into nomadic principle. Like an absolutist could be a nomad where they travel around and they could exploit and take advantage of other people's kindness, right? Like, oh, somebody gives you something free and then you keep doing it everywhere you go. Or like, the first time you go somewhere, people try to suck up to you, right? But then you never come back. So you're just a traveling nomad. So you'll take advantage of everything everywhere you go once and never get caught out for it. Whereas the longer you stay in a place, arguably, you get taken advantage of yourself, right? People start to rely on you or take you for granted or whatever. So that's the thing. And you might think, oh, exploiting, and that seems negative. But what it actually means is that nothing that can make you more nervous than when you overtake a big truck like that. Like, I always feel so uncomfortable doing it. Like, one day they're gonna knock you off the side and they won't even notice, like the dumb clowns that they can be. But look, the point is, again, that nomadic lifestyle is kind of like, oh, being nice to somebody and social contrivance and whatever. It's like, it's dependent on some end goal and something that you get out of it. But you're never going to see that person again in the modern interconnected world. You could be talking to them over the phone, or you could be talking to them over the internet, or you could be like, again, like at one of those rest stop type things. It's some traveler who's going there to eat. Being nice matter then, because it's like, you're never going to see them again, so who cares? Right? That would be sort of the mindset. So let's get into specify something along the lines of let's look at this first false dependency on society. It's kind of like, yes, if you give total control over nature, and not even you, if your parents or past generations give total control over nature itself to corporations and government, yes, it would seem that you rely on them. You still don't, right? And there's still ways to work around it, but effectively, like, freedom is outlawed and you can't just go out and live in nature and do that. Or you have to earn everything through contrivance. So under that monopolized, unnatural state that people have to concede and defer to over a long period of time, and ceding power to unqualified empirical authority, whatever. Under that circumstance, yes, it would seem to validate that, and it would seem like, oh, look, you need them or you rely on them. But really, it's more that you're tolerating them and subject to them and deferring to them. Right? It's a very odd thing. Society would do anything but let you escape. It would even bribe you, right? We'll give you free stuff, we'll give you welfare, we'll give you, whatever handouts, but you'll never be free, right? That's basically the claim. That's basically how it works. You'll never be free. As long as you live, you'll never be your free, true, inherent self. And so, getting back to the specification issue, right? The main source of cognitive dissonance in your everyday life is what? It's the fact that you are limited in your physical state, right? Whereas your mind is not limited. So your mind is infinite, objective, etc. So it's a question of, do you try to raise your physical state to the infinite objective mind, which of course you can't really do, or do you reduce or allow them to exist separately, or do you reduce the infinite objective mind to your limited physical state, often manifested through social contrivance, which acts as basically anti-thought to counter-thought and, be almost a placeholder there. Everything's like this self-insistent, self-fulfilling, projected, false duality, ego insistence kind of basis, but it doesn't actually serve any purpose, right? It's a self-created imbalance over compensation, right? Let's cede all this power over our inherent natural self to all this unqualified empirical authority, and then we somehow are competing over the scraps that they give you, right, from that inherent reality. So it may seem to be convenient and worth it, but even if you choose that, that's not something that uniformly has any basis to be outwardly insistent upon other people, because that's basically what you're saying. You're basically just saying you're ruled by your own laziness and your own negative nature that you can't control, because if, again, those are the criteria that are used as the basis to control you. Human beings have some negative nature that, like, oh, they would do bad things, that's why they have to be restricted. So much so, even when they're not doing bad things, not like punishing people, even preventing people from doing bad things, we're gonna restrict everything to just do this, as a preventative measure. It's like you're being treated as guilty until proven innocent, not that you are punished, if you do something bad. No, even if you don't do anything, you're still being punished for the supposed negative, preconceived negative aspect of other people. So, right, and again, the more people there are, the more that's used as like a false flag basis. Like, one person does something bad, so that's used as a basis to control everybody. And that's how society grows and grows and grows in power. So the irony of the machination process, your freedoms never come back, right? You always get more restriction, but it seems to balance itself out, even though it doesn't, by there's more technology now, so that'll overcompensate and distract you and whatever, seem to sort of give you freedom back, but not really, because that's the intention. It's just because technology inadvertently sort of does that, right? Despite the contrived state's willingness to control you, but it'll also use technology to do that as well. So the newest form of control in the modern era is some weird pseudo social contrivance, ego gratification, appearance, pretense, myopic framing, right? This is what's used to control you. So human potential and infinite objective mind and all that be damned. It's all just, we're struggling so much to preserve zero-sum means and struggle through this cognitive dissonance induced by the contrivance state itself. We'll never address that. We'll just struggle with it, and we'll even preserve the stimuli acme so that we perpetuate it before we vouch for it, before we hold it accountable. It shows you that people are selfish, but they're not even effectively selfish, right? They're halfway and just kind of dumb. Cairo, does it look like we're in Egypt? Some of the names of places in New York are especially dumb. Not saying every state doesn't have that, but there's a place called Mexico, there's a place called Texas, there's a place called, Rome, there's a place called Italy or London, and all these weird things. But no, getting back to that point of how you're controlled, or the source of your cognitive dissonance in a regular, everyday basis, what happens is that let's do the absolutist namesaking a little bit, named for function, basically, as a concept. Everything would be named for what it actually is, not for something else, right? It would serve a purpose, or it would be very generic. But no, the infinite objective mind versus the limited physical self. So in your everyday life, the cognitive dissonance that you face and constantly overcompensate for, whether you're aware of it in the observable practice or not, which most people are not, they just treat it as a default. It's only natural that we have to dumb ourselves down with alcohol and stuff like that, or that we have to distract ourselves with high favoritism in an imbalanced, non-value subversive state. It's not that that's natural to do, it's necessary to do because of the imbalance in the first place. So what credibility does a person have who does that? And again, you can go ahead, attack me if you want, right? That applies to me as well. At least I'm trying to observe the nature of the process objectively here, but it doesn't matter really. But if you engage in folly favoritism, that shows you it's a subversive state, non-value state. And so you're distracting yourself and overcompensating, which shows you, right, the flaws and the imbalance of that contrived state. And so now, what happens is, versus the imbalance subversive state is going to be specified in a manner that again, like your everyday life, you're coping with the fact that, again, of the specified limited thing, that you're limited to one area, you're limited to a partner, a sexual partner who came from that area, your local geographical area that you didn't even arguably choose, you happen to be born there. So you're constantly coping with that. That's where undue emphasis and emotion and bypassing critical thinking and undue, overcompensation, stuff like that comes in. It's not that there's anything wrong with any of those things. It's that they're not absolute exclusive to everything else. The way that they're not absolute exclusive to everything else. The way that basically that would be framed. So it would just be like, it just is. You just happen to live there, right? So if you value people equally, or you value people, then you would value everyone the same way. You wouldn't place any special emphasis. Or if you value based on a standard, there's no way to really say that that basic geographical area would be stronger based on that standard than anything else if you were to consider like all 8 billion people or whatever the case may be. And so that happens again is you're forced, or you kind of are specifying something that would apply in the same way to a larger process. So you say like, oh, the goodness of other people, but you don't really care about other people. You care about, again, your local environment, something more immediate. You might think, well, that's what you can impact, but you really don't care, right? You won't sacrifice 2 meals a day. You won't give up all your conveniences for somebody else's life or well-being. You don't really care. You're just using the pretense of caring to justify the specific area that you're in, the specific lifestyle that you're having. But if you truly cared, then the entire lifestyle and society you live in would contradict that. Right, or you would drastically change that, or you would basically right, you would sacrifice, you wouldn't necessarily be living that lifestyle at all. But again, it's like the plain dumb selfishness of the middle class that they play the victim, but they don't really care or value human life. They just value themselves, their own ego, gratification, overcompensation. They just value it kind of in an overextended way that, right. That the dependent overextended pretense would be you get certain relative comforts and luxuries in machination process, even though not only do you not care about other people truly, like real sacrifice, but you even, your society and everything even sucks dry the planet and nature itself. And I'm not talking about like environmentalism. I'm just talking about it'll take advantage that way, and it'll it's part of the reason why like this third world country would have more resources, but we ravage them, we suck them dry, a lot of different implications like that. So arguably, in part, this globalist kind of monster economy is part of the reason why that's even an issue in the first place, right? Because there's abundant resources for everybody, but yeah, like in other words, you don't care about other people. You would just use it as a pretense, and in your immediate environment, non-invasive self, right? A very egotistical basis of value, and so not actually standard, not actually care about other people, right? Dependent, overextended pretense, non-invasive self, and you get some ego gratification out of it. That's where social contrivance really comes in, because if you truly care about everybody everywhere, it would more than other people, because I socially, whatever, am socially likable or something. But that is meaningless, because while you're kind of appealing to other people's ego and gratification, right, somebody else could be sacrificing or focused only on actually genuinely helping other people, or again, removing the need. So it's a self-created process, right? So the gratification you see in society is halfway. You'll recycle one bottle to feel good about yourself. Meanwhile, the society you live in is the reason why, environment's being ravaged, or again, you'll give $1 to charity or whatever, but your society is the reason why, again, nature is kind of monopolized and controlled and sucked dry by corporations and stuff like that. So if you really cared, you wouldn't be a part of that at all. So you not only do you not care, but you only pretend to care. Not only do you not care, but you only pretend to care to reinforce the certain lifestyle and society that you're in. Right, which create that in the first place. So it's kind of the same. I'll make a tie into the stimuli acme preservation, I guess, where like, oh, you're struggling and conflict, cognitive dissonance, whatever, but then you'll have kids on top of that, so you'll perpetuate that same situation that you were struggling against, so you don't and then you'll use that to sort of justify and default, indignantly insist upon it. So basically what you're saying is you don't care, or you don't value something. You don't have standards, right? You don't have standards. Again, I can't blame you for anything that happens in your life or whatever you do. You didn't choose to be born. You didn't choose to be indoctrinated. You're a victim of contrivance. I give you all the passes in the world, right? Whatever you do, whatever happens, you cope with it. You overcompensate for it. I get it. But when you have children, now you're perpetuating that state and basically saying that you vouch for it. And not only that, but you're basically doing something else. You're saying that let me say it this way. This is like elitist victim blame, or like harsh role play only scenario, let's just say. But like, pretend there's a character, right? The elitist victim blamer character. And this hypothetical character, not me, would say the following. They would say, of like a, again, modern female privilege hypothetical person, they would say, like, your whole life you benefit from that privilege, right? Pretty privilege or female privilege or whatever, and you benefit from that and you take advantage of that, and you get money or gifts from men or whatever it is, and then finally, when you would kind of that privilege might wear out, or you'd be accountable, what do you do then? Oh, you hide behind the children that you had as a result of that privilege as well. Like, you got knocked up, pregnant, and then now you'll say, oh, but I'm doing it for the children. Well, the only reason why you had children is because you were exploiting the fact of the privilege that you got in the first place, right, and engaging in the stimuli acme. So that really explains it very well, right? This female privilege, you rely on your whole life, right? You benefit from, you try to get ahead with that, you exploit it, right? You take advantage of it, you benefit from it. And then when you'd finally be held to account, like, okay, we get it, you have privilege, we get it. Now, if we point that out or question it, oh, but look, I have children, I'm a mother now, I'm doing it for that reason, but wait a second. That's also tied to the stimuli acme still, that like, that's part of the privilege. So, oh, now it's for the children that you didn't need to have, that you had as part of the exploitation of the privilege that you get through the stimuli acme as well. So, in other words, that's all you are, that's all you're good for in this hypothetical scenario that I'm talking about. I feel like a lot of these stains are on the inside of my car, not... Whenever a truck overtakes another truck, like, this is a disaster waiting to happen, like, what the fuck? But let me get back to the core point that I was talking about originally at the beginning, and that point is a simple fact that basically basically you're in a position to well, first of all, people are controlled by their base instincts, right? So you might think, like, what is the difference between objective reality, inherent man, as I call it, and stuff like that, and your state? It's the same inherent tendency, right? But it's reduced to a half mass, and then you're controlled by it. So it's kind of like society takes from you, right, your inherent freedom and nature itself and everything, right? So, like, this is how society works. Let's give monopoly over nature itself to big corporations and government, and then they'll give us a little bit back, and then we can fight together, fight. Oh, wait. Panda Express? Wait, what? But how? It's lying. I even said there's no Panda Express. Wait, is that a real thing? Why wouldn't that show up then when I look up? Because I even say that. What? Oh, I wish I had more time. I would have checked it out. What? I don't even know where this is to, like, look back for reference. Bro, why they hide these Panda Expresses away? That's so ridiculous. Like, that never showed up on any map. Ooh. That is so weird. It's almost like they do it by choice. Right, there's one in, again, university, there's one in a military base, there's one in here, like a rest stop. Like, there's none actually in proper places anymore. But no, what I'm saying is, let's give power over everything to these structures, and then they'll give us something back. So there really is no standard behind it. It's just sort of laziness and weakness. So sure, you might be content with what little scraps they give you back, but objectively there's no actual basis for it. So it might be projected like, oh, that's just you're selfish, or you want something, but it's actually kind of selfish and lazy to be so dumb that you're forsaking the human mind and potential and reality for those bread and circuses, relative comfort, stuff like that. So basically, what happens is the same thing is reduce their potential to a half-mass state, right? We'll kind of do. So in other words, you're controlled by the same thing that you'd be doing freely and fully, but you're controlled by it at half-mass. So basically, you're controlled by the same. It's sort of hard to explain. So either way, the same tendency is at work, but instead of being free with it, you're controlled by it, right? Like, okay, instead of engaging in the stimuli acme, it's specified, like, oh, you have to be with one person only, you have to follow these rules and this and that. So you're being controlled by a base inherent reality or tendency, right, that just exists, but in this case is being controlled and limited. Right, I feel like I had a better way to explain it, but basically, so again, you take the inherent reality and you give up control over it just so that you can end up being controlled by it halfway anyway. So at least the other way of looking at it could be you reject the basis altogether. You say, okay, it's a bad thing, but then let's actually treat it as bad and then just not do it at all or be free of it completely. But instead it's halfway, right? This is the half-mass hedonism, etc., that I talk about. So what it means is basically, this is just like an aside, but like true full value for yourself or something else or anything cannot exist, right? By definition, it's a subversive state. There's no measure, there's nothing, right? You just concede to a non-value state. And bread and circuses, etc., is comfortable. So you just kind of go along with anything. This is how you get, again, unqualified empirical authority. Basically just no thought or no standard put into anything ever that anybody does. But that's why I say qualified first, but then people get caught up with zero-sum half-mass function, whatever. And then let me try to do one more tie-in to that original discussion, though. Basically, what I'm saying is that you're controlled at half-mass by your inherent tendencies, so there's no real special meaning to it, right? You could either practice the same thing fully or freely, or just at half mast. So again, stimuli acme, it could be unlimited, you can sleep around, be promiscuous, whatever, or you could limit it and be controlled by it and get gratification from being controlled by it that is trained and socially engineered to try to counteract that inherent tendency. So there's no special meaning to either one. It's just the full inherent free form of it, or being controlled by a half-mast state of it. Right? You can be aware of the nature of the process of that. And then the other thing you can be aware of is, again, the main form of your cognitive dissonance in society is basically as follows, that think about a scenario like where social contrivance isn't necessary, or value isn't derived by it, it's not necessary, it's like an ego cultish kind of hierarchy that's being created. But again, the bigger picture point here is the specification fallacy that causes cognitive dissonance to emerge in your everyday life. Your mind is infinite, objective, unlimited, but your physical state is narrow, limited, and instrumental-minded. So what happens is, struggle with all those possibilities, with all that awareness that you have, and right, you struggle with that specification. Like you're stuck in one place, you're limited to the options that you have, like in terms of the stimuli acme and otherwise. So everything is like non-invasive self and ego, insistent on overcompensation, arbitrary exposure, no actual standard to it, arbitrary. So doesn't mean it's bad, but it means there's no actual basis to it, exclusive to everything else. So it would explain all the arbitrary things that happen, or the conflict of contrivance that goes along with it. And so what it means is basically that it's a struggle to try to make that seem absolute, even though you can clearly see how it isn't. So, right, like you happen to be born there, that's why you live there, but you would insist upon, oh no, it's something special, and propaganda, and nearness postulate, and all this. Right, so you know it's not absolute, it just is arbitrary. If you had been born somewhere else, you would value that. So, again, it doesn't mean that there's any claim being made or there's anything wrong with it. It just means, again, it's not absolute, so it would be hard to specify, again, exclusive to everything else. So you didn't choose it, and then again, the nearness postulate, like with the stimuli acme, you might think that you chose that, but it's still amongst the people that, of the people that, amongst basically the people that people want to be controlled by a process, but they don't want to be aware of it. So it's the same process. This is where social contrivance comes in. Like, oh, this person is more or less convincing with this, but like maybe they just have more of an incentive, whereas the other person doesn't, or maybe they reject the ego basis and just don't care about that. So like, they don't want to control you through your ego. They want to be free, self-governance, remove the need, undo the specification, for which that social contrivance and undue emphasis is necessary, right? As if to justify that by having you bypass critical thinking. But again, that's the issue of just like the infinite objective mind being reduced to the limited physical state and insisting upon that as though it's absolute. Again, that's the main source of your cognitive dissonance. Like, you happen to be born there, so you know that there's no special meaning to it. You could have been born anywhere else, and you didn't choose it anyway. And then, oh, the stimuli acme. Oh, they happen to live in the same geographical area as you, but they must be your soulmate. It's love. It's meant to be. It's absolute. Right. So you see that there's no actual standard behind it. It's just arbitrary insistence and. Oh yeah,